Hi, and welcome to VFX Tutors. I'm Josh, and in this tutorial we're going to start prepping our model to be UV'd. So hopefully you've got to this point where we've completely finished the model. I would say usually when I'm doing this in production I would always UV my model at the same time as modelling it, so if I've modelled this I'd then UV it afterwards, but other people have their different methods. Some people like to do a big bulk of UVing, but because we're doing this sort of UV tutorials afterwards, I thought we'd just do some UV it all afterwards as well. So the first thing that we want to do is tidy everything up. So mostly this tutorial is just going to be prepping our model to be UV'd, because it's really important that we have it all ready and clean. No transforms or history on any of the model. I know we try to clean it up as we go along, but we need to make sure we have no transforms or anything, or any nodes left on the geometry before we UV it. Because if we do, you could start getting some really weird stuff happening, like UVs animating when you don't want them to. And also just general tidy up. So you need to make sure that if you're doing this for work, making sure that this is tidy. Like at the moment, it's an absolute mess, and it'd never be acceptable to sort of give this to someone to texture or anything like that. Cool. So I'm just going to go through and I'm just going to delete all the stuff that I know that I don't need anymore. What's this? Because we've got a lot of stuff in here which I've probably just left behind. We've got all our reference images. We can delete those. We've got our prop sword. Let's keep that. I think we actually need to duplicate this. I'm just going to Control D that and Shift P that out. I'm just going to unhide all these. And you know what? I'm going to keep this in here, but I'll just hide the whole thing. And now we've got our sword, so I'm actually going to place this. Because we also need to make sure that everything's named. So a lot of this tutorial first is going to be organizing, which is a key component of VFX, unfortunately. And we need to sort of UV these mesh objects, but we don't want to UV all of these. We'll just UV these ones, but we'll get to that point. So I'm not too worried about the chain at the moment, all the rigging of this, because we're going to redo this. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is get rid of all my mesh, because I've only done this so I can visualize it. And what you might want to do is, when we made these cut links, we've got these offset along curves. So this is all the positions of the links on the curve. And I've saved them in a rig offsets, so I know when to use this for when I do the rigging stage. So you can copy those down, or just write your own ones down. It's up to you. So I'm just going to now get rid of all my mesh at the moment, because I don't want any sort of that stuff on it at the moment. And I think I can just delete it, and it should be fine. And I just want to clean up the entire scene. So there's no mess in there, and we can rig all this correctly later on. So we've got our mesh objects. Where's that locator? That locator's in the center. And we've got our curves, so we need to organize all of this. You may have done this as you went along, so that's probably... And I think this was just a duplicate, just so I could see. So we've got the scan from when we did our handle. And our mesh objects need to stay in the center. find what these locators are doing. I think these are all central. What's this image plane? Let's delete that. We don't need that. Cool. So now we've got no chain links because we'll do this in the rigging because we don't want to UV every single one of those. We just want to UV these, and even if we don't have enough variation, we can create variation in our shaders. So what I want to do first is continue cleaning all this up. Let's organize our mesh objects. So, oh, let's just group that. Call this drive link group. These are named properly. And I'm just going to put this under the mesh objects as well. Cutting chain, GRP. Cool. So we'll just. So we've got our mesh objects. Just going to delete that locator. And then I'm also going to, because this has got a lattice on the moment, so we definitely need to get rid of that. So if we select our drive chain curve and we delete the history, so that's removed the lattice. I guess for rigging you could probably keep it on there, but I'm not too worried about that. So I'm actually going to call this chain curves GRP. So we've got our drive chain curve, and now we've got these saw link curves. I'm just going to call this LF. No, that's right. RGT for right, and LFT for left. So it's really important that you do name everything. And we'll probably duplicate that when we get around to rigging, but we're not going to worry about it too much. So I'm just going to stick that under my drive chain curves. And I want to make sure, see I've got these transforms on here. So I may as well start with my curves, even though we're not. So I'm just going to delete my history. Freeze the transforms. So now we have no transforms on here. So now I'm just going to go to my modify and just reset transformations. So now the transformations should be at the origin. Cool. Now we've got our mesh objects, and these should already be prepped from when we did the first round of rigging and stuff. And these need to stay, well, these can stay here for now. Let's find this locator. We can delete that locator. Cool. So now we've sort of tidied up our curves and our mesh objects. Let's hide those. So now we can go for our chainsaw bit. There's quite a lot in here that we need to have a look at. So we're going to just sequentially go through the entire lot and just make sure it's all clean. So let's just tidy up everything first. So we've got our chainsaw group and our, so if I control 1 on that, we've got our broken blade, so that's actually not, so we'll call this the guitar, call things correctly so it's not, so things don't get mixed up. Geo. group. So let's put it under the group. Copy that. And just rename it to Geo. Cool. Katana Blade Geo. And what we'll do, we'll just double check because we've got history on here, so we need to get rid of that. So it's a good idea just to keep your channel box editor open or your tribute editor, and you'll be able to see if there's any extra nodes on there. So we want to make sure this is all clean and there's just nothing on there and named correctly. Cool, so we've named that correctly. It's got no history. And what we can do is just do freeze transformations. And we've got bulk group, which looks like just an empty group, which has nothing in there, which is probably because we've duplicated it so many times. So let's just delete that. And we've got the motor group here. Because we're going to duplicate this anyway, so don't worry too much about doing both of them. But you need to make sure that we go through and just clean up everything that's here. So I'm just going to call this. Perfect. To the left. That's named correctly. And what we'll do, we'll just group that, call this motor case GRP. And when we group it, it'll put it down to the bottom so we know that's already nicely grouped. And we could modify and reset transformations. Cool. So we're just going to go through and do everything as well. So I think most of these are probably named correctly. Just want to make sure there's no history on them. Small screws. So here we've got polycylinder here. It's not great to have. You don't want anything that's called polycylinder, really. It's not great. So what we can do is let's just rename this to LFT screws. Just call them. Actually, let's just do this. Let's just go to mesh and combine, because there's only 4 of them, and we can easily just UV those. Geo. So we've got small bolts. We've got the same thing here. So we've actually got 2 groups of small bolts here. Ones that probably be rotating with the rig, so we don't want to join those. So let's mesh. Combine. Yeah, let's just combine it because those things they're not very difficult to UV. We'll call these small bolts fixed. combine those as well. Delete the history. Just copy that. So those are some moving ones. It's got small bolts. Freeze transformations. Cool. So we've got this drive axle GRP. So it's important that you do name these and make sure there's no history on them, because you don't want to UV all this, then you've got history on it, because then it just kind of breaks everything. So we probably could put this all under the bearing. Let's just check. Bearing Indica, bearing Geo, brass bearing Geo. It's got history, so that's that. Freezer transforms. So I'll probably just do this motor, then fast forward through the rest of it. It's going to be doing the same thing through and through. So yeah, I'll probably fast forward through this, because I'm just going to be doing the same thing. So I've just got to the batteries, and obviously we use this for our wrap, and we're not going to really see anything because this is going to be a solid plastic wrap and we're not going to see any of this, so we don't need all of this, so we can delete a lot of this stuff. So I just thought I'd stop fast forwarding it from there, and we can keep, let's just say for safety we can keep those end ones. Let's just we can get rid of a lot of this stuff and keep that. So yeah, so stuff like this that you're not going to see, because the shape when that's all textured, that's going to look like there's batteries in there. We're not going to need to see inside it. We just need those ends covered. So yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. I'll probably now continue fast forward through it. So I've got to a point where I've tidied everything up, named it, and as I've done it, I've hidden it. But I've got to a point where I've kind of left this. And the reason why I've left this is because this is a lot of the stuff that we're going to be duplicating. And it makes no sense to rename all these when we're going to be duplicating them anyway. So a lot of this stuff we will actually use this as sort of a template. Then what we do, we'll name one and UV it, then we'll reduplicate it across so we don't have to name and UV multiple times. So that being said, we will group all this for now and we'll call this duplicates. It's just so we know when we get to that part, we'll probably do that last because it's going to be pretty simple. Cool, so if I just unhide everything, and now we see got a pretty tidy, we've got our mesh objects, and we actually need to put our chain curves under our model, because obviously that needs to eventually, when we do they need to follow, and we need to leave the mesh objects out for now because they need to stay at the origin. So yeah, we have tidied it all up. We can probably delete these layers. I think that's the scan, what we did from. Might be useful to keep that. The prop sword. Let's put that on there as well. And we're pretty much done. So we've got everything nice and clean. We've basically tidied everything up. We can even go into our display and tag objects. And what we can see, we've actually got a lot of nodes left behind. We've got a lot of history here. Let's try and... That might be from the prop sword. So let's just select the prop sword and just get rid of all that, doesn't really matter. And let's go through, and there's a lot of shaders and stuff that's just been, we've brought in, and we've kind of, from like importing like our scans and stuff and re-importing stuff. So what we can do is just, from the default object, let's just double check we're not going to delete any. What's this for? Poly extrude edge. So we don't want to delete those, otherwise it will remove it from the history. So oh, it might have been from the duplicates, because we didn't actually check the duplicates. So I'm just gonna go down and select all of them. I'm just going to delete all of them. So now we've got no random nodes in our scenes. And obviously that's actually deleted all the layers, so just get rid of the layers, so I'm not too bothered about that. And what I'm doing, I'm just having a look around to see if there's anything odd that's happened after doing that. And we can see everything's all nice and tidy. Cool, so we've tidied up our sword. We've got it all nice and tidy. What's this? This is a... we've got a lot of cameras here. We can just hide these. Just so they're out of the way. Cool. Yeah, so we've tidied up our scene, and now we're ready to start UVing it. So if you've enjoyed this tutorial, hit that like button and subscribe for more like this.